Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 49 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is forgiveness. Our quote of the day comes to us from Bernard Meltzer. When you forgive, you in no way change the past, but you sure do change the future. It is a complete honor and privilege to bring you today's episode. Although some of the content in today's show is for a mature audience, his story and his message of forgiveness are incredible. I'm completely humbled that he was willing to come onto our show and open up candidly to our audience. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Joshua T. Berglan. Josh, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Christopher.
Pleasure is all ours. So first question, are you ready to make it happen?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the number one objective of our podcast is to motivate and inspire our audience. I was curious if you have either a story about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and didn't quit.
Yeah, the first story that comes to mind is my trip, like when I moved to LA on accident. I had been out in Newport Beach working for a couple of weeks and came home to Oklahoma and looked at my girlfriend in the face after being there about 10 hours and said, I got to get out of here. And I just got in a car and drove and stopped in Denver, stopped in Vegas. And by the time I got to LA, I knew it was home or where I was supposed to be. So I called her up and said, hey, I'm staying. So if you want to come, sell everything in the house and get out here. And at that time in my life, I had a skincare line and everything was going amazing. But I was I was struggling internally, but professionally I was thriving. But I really felt there was more for me. And when I got to LA, I felt alive. Well, the beauty about LA is that it can bring out the best and worst in you. And I was thriving, being able to connect with people, really being able to expand my mind and see this, like all of the different opportunities and what I was actually capable of doing. But because of so much of my past that had not been healed and dealing with the sexual, physical, and emotional abuse, and then also dealing with a secret drug problem that no one knew about and abusing drugs in general, I ended up playing around in the dark side of LA and lost my way and lost the path that I was on, worse than I had ever been. And it got to the point where I ended up going to jail 3 different times in LA. I was doing so much drugs at the time that, my senses and the things that made me good, my instincts were so dulled that I didn't see what was happening. I didn't see that I was losing this massively successful business that I had built. And it was just on top of the world. And I got an offer to get bought out. And I accepted, like, wow, this is going to be a great deal. I'm going to be paid all this money a month for the next 2 years. I'm going to be able to live comfortably. It's all good. What I didn't know was that this company had been devising a plan to basically rip me off, and I didn't see it. So when I sold my company to them and my distribution rights, and I came on as an employee. 2 weeks into that, I was fired. And then they also stopped paying me the monthly agreement fee that we had. And little by little, I lost everything and ended up becoming homeless. And I lost everything in that 2-week time period. And I was homeless for 2 weeks, which is not a long time, but I was homeless. And I'm a fighter and I never quit and I just kept going. But the fact is that once I got another job to get back on my feet and not be homeless again, I went right back to drugs because I wasn't happy. And I proceeded to end up going to jail again. And this time I thought I was going to be in jail for 5 days. I'm sorry. I was in jail for 5 days, but the truth is I was being told that I'm going to be there for the next 5 years. I was terrified, and I knew nothing. That I didn't know what to do. I had realized that all of these gifts that I knew that God had given me, I'd completely thrown away. I didn't respect what I had. I didn't respect money. I didn't respect relationships. I didn't respect my mom. And frankly, I didn't respect my dad. I hated my dad. Sitting in jail, it was about my second day, and they wouldn't give me anything to read, and I was in isolation because I was just really, really sick because I had just destroyed my health. And I went through the process of just screaming at God, like, why can't you fix me? Why can't I change like you change everybody else? And I heard the voice, or I felt it, heard it, whatever. It was in my head very powerfully. You have to forgive your father. Now, I didn't want to do that because of all the things that had happened. But finally, I just said, Dad, I forgive you. And in that moment, I felt like I was knocked on my butt and then lifted completely back up at the same time. It was the most amazing feeling. And at that time, I was just talking to God and saying, listen, I will use you. You please use me in any way you see fit. If I'm stuck in jail for the rest of my life, or the next 5 years, or however long, use me. Let me do your will, because I know that you put me on this planet. You've gotten me out of so many bad things, and I've wasted it. I've blown every opportunity. Use me. A few days later, I found out that I was getting out of jail, and I got out of jail, and I ended up getting out of jail with no charges. But that's when the real work began for me, because again, I just started living. I had just got done being homeless. I'd been struggling, and at that point, I had to make some serious decisions. My company still kept me, but I realized that wasn't for me because God called me to do something much, much greater. And so I quit my job after just being homeless and decided to learn how to brand myself online, thus starting the process of doing what I felt like God called me to do. And it's been a long journey. There's a lot of stories from there. But honestly, when I think of how I overcame and how I turned my life around, it all starts there. That didn't mean the work was done. In fact, I have to work harder than I've ever worked in my life. But that's where it all started. That to me is the core of where my life turned around and what helped me get on the right path to be where I'm at today. Sorry for the long answer.
No, there is no sorry whatsoever. That is quite a story. I knew a little bit of it, but I did not know the entirety of it. That is remarkable in the sense of what you've been through and where you are today. Maybe a tough question, but what was the toughest part of that entire journey?
Breaking my mom's heart. Being told that I was going to die, having nights that I knew that I really didn't think I was going to wake up and didn't care. And reflecting on that and thinking about what my mom was going to think. Because my mom is this amazing woman that was when I think of love, outside of my faith, when I think of love, I think of my mom. My mom is my biggest influence professionally, spiritually, and obviously she's the biggest role model I have. And breaking her heart was the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Wow, how is your relationship with your mom? I'm sure it's repaired and then some today.
Oh, and here's the thing: my mom stood by me through it all, but my mom didn't know. I mean, she's in Oklahoma. There was so much that she didn't know. She didn't know about me being molested. She didn't know about how bad my drug use was. She didn't know how far gone I was. But she did know I was hurting, and she stood by me through it all. I don't know how. And the best thing she ever did was not bailing me out of jail. I thank God every day she didn't bail me out of jail. But our relationship is solid. I talk to my mom multiple times a day sometimes. I love her to death. Just found out she's coming out to San Diego and just could not be, her and my stepdad, I could not be more excited.
I think your story is incredible, and obviously it speaks to what we talk about here every day at No Quit, is just never giving up and staying focused. And I think so many people get to that 2-yard line in life, and it's just obviously a metaphor for many things, but you got to the 2-yard line in many different areas of your life, and you kept on going, and you never quit. And I think it says a lot about you in regards to your ability to just stay with it. So I commend you for that. But again, I just can't thank you enough for sharing that story with us.
Oh, thank you.
Now, one of the things we talk about every day is, and we utilize, is a daily quote. I was curious if you have a favorite quote.
No, you know what? I don't have the quote verbatim. I mean, there's certain Bible verses, of course, that I love. There's certain quotes, but Richard Branson seems to be the man of quotes that I love. I don't know it verbatim, but there is a quote that it kind of sits in the back of my head, and it's the one about when you're given an opportunity, take it. It doesn't matter if you know anything about it or if you know about it or not. And that mantra has always, even if I've tried things and I've completely failed, I've never regretted trying it because I learned something. And the only time failure is truly failure is if you fail backwards or you don't learn from the failure. And because that becomes wisdom. So that quote, and again, I butchered it, but most people out there are going to know the one I'm talking about. That has been a huge inspiration for me because look, when it came down to it and I didn't have opportunities and I had to create opportunities, I did some things and tried some things and tried different jobs and entrepreneurial type things and odd jobs. I tried it just because I wanted to keep a roof over my head and I didn't want to be homeless again. And I also believed with everything in me that I was going to learn something from those opportunities. Maybe I was going to learn that I don't ever want to try that again, but I'm going to learn something. So that was always inspiring to me.
That's a great quote, and it reminds me of another famous quote by Nelson Mandela. I never lose. I either win or learn.
Yeah, amen to that. Nelson Mandela he's fantastic.
So one of the things we talk about every day is motivation. And I was curious, as we all know, life is incredibly challenging. What motivates and drives you every single day?
My purpose.
And what is your purpose, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, part of it is being on the show, and my purpose is not doing radio, but God spared my life. And one of the things that I always envisioned, like when I was being molested, when I was being abused, and then I started becoming the person that was abusing myself, and I became, I started living very reckless because I never healed those wounds of my childhood. It is everything in me that I need to find a way to be on a stage sharing my story. And I want to reach out to the people in the audience and look at them and tell them that what's happening to you is not right. What's happening to you is wrong in every way. There's nothing right about it. But if you do not get help, if you don't have a voice, if you do not scream out, I need help, this is happening to me, you will turn into that person that's hurting you. You are going to turn into that monster. There's no way around it. You have to heal. And then in some way, you have to find a way to forgive. And the second purpose, part of that purpose, is that if someone in the audience is doing the abusing, if they are doing the abusing, they can get help. They need to reach out to the people that they hurt and apologize and make amends and say, I'm sorry for this. This happened to me. It's not an excuse. This happened to me and I didn't get help. Please forgive me. This is wrong. And make it right. One of the worst feelings I have, Christopher, is that regardless of how much my heart has been healed, from my faith has a lot to do with that. But one of the things that hurts the most is that my father, when he died, was worried about what his image was going to be. What would people remember him as? And he literally was staging his funeral in such a way where it would make him look like a hero. And everyone knew it wasn't true. He never made amends for the wrongs that he did to my brother and I and my sisters. He never made those things right. And because of that, we are all left with this void and this hurt. That why didn't we know that it happened to him. But it's made it harder for my brothers and sisters to forgive and truly let go because of that. So it's really to encourage people to seek help, because you don't have to live the life that I lived. It is only by the grace of God that I'm alive. I should not be alive. I don't deserve to be alive, or I didn't deserve to be alive. So with everything in me, my purpose is to get this message out and to share my story. And look, I don't think that I'm a perfect looking guy or anything like that, but I'm an attractive guy and I take care of myself and I care about what I do. And if I'm willing to go on stage and talk about the awful things that I've done, and talking about losing 2 marriages, talking about losing my kids, talking about being a sex addict, talking about being just addicted to anything that would make me escape my reality. And in the path, the dark places that I went, not everyone's going to survive that. Not everyone does. I'm sure people in the audience know someone that's died from an overdose or an accident or something. And look, they didn't get an opportunity to make it right. For some reason, God gave me another chance, and I'm not going to waste it.
You know, I think you touched on something that was pretty interesting. Is everybody in the audience and our listeners know somebody that had an issue with overdose or something along those lines and lost their lives, or somebody that they know somebody that lost their lives. And I think you've been given this opportunity. I'm not going to get religious or spiritual in that regard, because it's not my place to do that. But I think a lot of times in life, and it doesn't have to be as tough of a situation that you're in, people are presented with opportunities to either do something with it or not to do it with it. And I find that a lot of times people won't do something with it and won't do the work because it takes a lot of work. So I commend you not only for sharing your story, not only admitting and forgiving the past, but realizing that you had one of two choices. You could either continue down the path you were going, or you could make a significant change, and obviously you've made that significant change. Here's a different spin of a question. One of the things we talk about with our audience is personal development, and people are into different areas of improving their lives, and a lot of times we talk about different books. I was curious during this transition, was there a book or books that had a significant impact on you?
Yes, because I wasn't in the place when I really made the decision to start at least trying to work on myself and change. It was before I gave my life to Christ. But The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Linikani, I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. That book identified with me because I've always thought differently than everybody else. Instead of looking at what's in front of me, I'm looking at the giant world picture. I try to see the world in almost like I'm from space, or I'm in outer space looking down, and look to see how everything connects and pieces together. And that way of thinking has always been trouble. Every time I got a job or had work, and I would try to sell these visions for people, they resisted it and they thought I was crazy and it would never work. Reading that book helped me understand that the only way to really be extraordinary is to broaden my horizons even more, and to really just say, screw the rules of the world. We are born into rules that don't even make sense. I mean, and look, I have my faith, but most of the religions we take are religions that our parents had. And we just accept society's rules. I mean, obviously we can't break the law, but some of these society rules that we play by are BS. And it limits our vision. It limits our ability to love, our capacity to love and help and to give back to the world is so closed-minded. It's insulting. That book set me free, and it allowed all of the other books that I love to read. I love The One Thing by Gary Keller. Love The One Thing because I work in a lot of different industries. I mean, private jets, beauty, custom cosmetics, skincare, private jets, yachts, renewable energy, like entertainment. I get to work on all those things, but honestly, to me, it's all one thing. It's all about service. It's all about finding what people need, finding out what people's needs are, and then finding a way to meet it. And so it simplifies so much for me, and it allowed me to focus on the one most important thing of every issue, and that's how can I be of service to you? So those two books, but I read nonstop. I read the Bible, I write, there's so many different books. I'm reading a book now about speaking from my friend Lauren Harris, but reading and listening to audio, oh my gosh, the audio, Les Brown on YouTube is like a go-to every day. I love Les Brown.
Now, you can't go wrong with anything that Les does, whether it's written or video or audio. He's quite an individual. And I had Jeff Woods on my podcast, who works for Gary Keller, and we spoke in detail about The One Thing. So it's a great book, and I would definitely recommend that to our listeners if they have not read it. So here's an interesting question for you. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Did you say have dinner?
Yes, sir.
You know, you brought up Nelson Mandela, and he's always, and I mean this sincerely, I would love to visit with him because I would love to visit with him about his time in prison. Like that, in his journey and how he stayed, like he kept his faith. I mean, and he didn't give up. Oprah, oh my gosh, I love Oprah. Vishen, who I mentioned, who runs mindvalley.com, I got to meet him at a book signing at an event in New Orleans. I would love to have dinner with him. And this is not even a political statement, but I would love it all because politically I don't lean anyway. But I think Obama would be a fascinating guy to have dinner with because, you know, the pressure that he had to have been under. I don't even care about his ideology and all of that stuff. Just the pressure of being president, being the first, he was, African-American president, and the pressure that brought with world leaders and just in this country. Like, that would be a fascinating dinner to me. I love that question. That
would be quite a dinner. You've added quite a few interesting characters that I think the only challenge would be is who would speak and who would listen.
You're right. Maybe we'd have to do it throughout the week.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a good point. We'll do it. So we'll set up an entire week of dinners. It'll still be the same people, just one-on-one, so you don't have to worry about anybody vying for each other's time.
I love it.
So I wanted to ask you, you mentioned quite a few business and things. Is there anything exciting that you're working on or you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, man. Really? Thanks for asking that question. I didn't know you were going to do that. I have a CBD product coming out. And I think that most of your listeners could put two and two together when people suffer trauma at an early age, they develop some mental disorders. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm just going to assume here. But I battled with PTSD, bipolar disorder, and ADHD on top of being dyslexic since my childhood. And the medications that they would prescribe me, they would, oh my God, I was taking 7-8 medications at a time, and it would just like numb me. And if you haven't figured out yet, I'm a pretty high energy guy. I'm a passionate guy, and I love talking about what I believe in. The things I don't believe in, I'm not so good at talking about. But I went rogue, tried to talk to my doctor about CBD, and my doctor was just paying it no mind. And I said, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna start taking it. Well, I started taking it, and because I know a lot about the manufacturing process of different things, especially with like skincare and beauty products, I knew some questions that I needed to ask, and I knew the things I needed to look for. So I started taking CBD, and little by little, I felt like not only is my body starting to heal because I've had 2 back surgeries, and I've got a crazy painkiller story, but we don't have time for. But I I really started to feel like my body was transforming, like I was healthy, I was able to start running again, but then mentally, like I was more clear. And so I just stopped taking my medication, which every psychiatrist in the audience is going, what? You can't do that. Well, I did. And I'm an advocate for CBD, and I'm very, very honored to be a brand ambassador for a company called Bespoke Extracts. And it is a Manuka honey and CBD. Look, there's a lot of good CBD products out there, and there's a lot of garbage. This is a higher quality, very, very pure form of CBD and mixed with Manuka honey. And the health benefits are staggering. There's a sports supplement. There's going to be, or it's a sports water, a sports drink. There's going to be a pet product. And of course, there's the product for humans. And because of that, because of the CBD that I'm taking, I've been able to get off of every single medication I take. I don't even take an aspirin. I don't battle with inflammation. I'm not battling with the extremes of bipolar disorder. And frankly, I like having a little bit of ADHD, honestly, because I have an ability to hyperfocus. But it got to a point where it was ridiculous. And now, because of CBD, I truly believe that I live a very functional, I live a good life at a very high level as far as my performance. And I'm very, very grateful for CBD. And so I'm very, very involved in research and formulation and learning more about it, because there's some really amazing science that's coming out of Israel about the benefits of CBD. And here's a fact that a lot of people don't know. CBD comes out of breast milk. Like, you're consuming, when your mother breastfeeds you, you're consuming CBD. It's it's a naturally occurring thing in the body. And so there's now some research that says, as humans, we have a CBD deficiency. Like, it's something that our body needs. So I'm a huge advocate. And the other thing too is the message that needs to get out. CBD doesn't get you high. CBD is not THC. So getting that message out is extremely important to me. So I'm very, very passionate about that product, because I'm seeing it transform lives, not just my own.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some of that. I did not know the extreme of the backstory with that, so thank you for that. Before we let you go, I wanted to ask if you have some parting words for our listeners.
Actually I do. It's never too late to turn your life around. But if the longer you wait and the longer you continue to go down the bad path that you're on, you still can turn your life around. But the longer that you wait, the more baggage that you will remain to carry with you. One of the biggest mistakes that I made when I gave my life to Christ, and I really did change, and I'm sorry for being religious, but that's my faith, and I'm not apologizing for that. But I thought that everything was going to go away. I thought the pain and the turmoil that I caused my girlfriend, my ex-wives, and just people in other relationships I had, I thought, well, just because I changed my life, like they're automatically going to heal and everything's going to be okay. No, it doesn't work that way. So waiting another day, waiting a week, waiting a month, waiting another year to turn your life around and to change, okay, if you want to play that game, that's fine. But you've got to know that you're just going to be carrying more baggage with you along the way. So waiting to change your life for the better is really, I don't advise it. Like, do it now. Like, if you know you're living the wrong way, if you know that you're cheating on your wife, you know that you're not paying enough attention to your kids, if you know that you're cheating your business partner and you're doing people wrong and you're abusing drugs in secret and you're just living a double life, don't wait to change your life. What you're doing is not right, and it will come back to get you. I promise you, it always does. I still deal with the consequences of my past, even though my heart is so different. I don't like experiencing that. I hate it. But you gotta know that if you delay and you wait, it's only going to be harder and more challenging for you. I work my butt off to stay on the path that I want to be on, the one that God wants me to be on. It's a lot of work. It's even more work dealing with the baggage that I have. But at least I can look at those people in the face and go, I was wrong. I'm sorry. And I'm doing everything I can to be different. Will you please forgive me?
Wow, that's some powerful advice, and it's something we talk about often on our show is taking action. And people get, unfortunately, caught up with the coulda, woulda, shouldas, and there's a significant difference in taking action versus not. And I think you touched on something really important, is that why wait a day, a week, a month? Because what the end result's going to be the same. You're just going to be carrying around a lot more baggage. So before we let you go, the last question, and I promise it's the easiest one. What's the best way for our listeners to connect or follow you?
Oh, I love Facebook. I haven't figured out Twitter and all of that other stuff. I'm on there. But if you put Joshua T. Berglan into Facebook, you'll find me. My last name is Berglan. You can go to my website. I write really passionate blogs sharing a little bit more about my story. And that's Live Mana Worldwide, LIVEMANA worldwide.com. There's several ways to contact me through there. I love talking to people on Facebook. It's been a great tool for me, but I really love connecting with people there.
Listen, I cannot thank you enough for not only sharing your story, but your candor. And you've obviously been through a lot, but the best part about what you've been through is you didn't let it break you. And one of the things we talk about often is a lot of times people bend or break, and you're only really in trouble when you break. And you've obviously bent quite a bit, but you've come back and you're doing things and you're paying it forward. And I truly appreciate you sharing your story with us as well as your time.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
To sum up today's episode and our theme of the day, forgiveness, Josh passionately shared his incredible story with us. Although I can't say I know what Josh was going through, we are all familiar with the concept of forgiveness. Josh's story, which began in Oklahoma, then to LA, and then through his third and final arrest, is unbelievable. From drugs, being molested, arrested 3 different times, losing everything, and homelessness, there isn't much that Josh hasn't encountered. As difficult as it was listening to Josh's story, the best part was the passion he had when he spoke about making a significant difference and helping others dealing with similar challenges. I think the best part of the interview was in his parting words when Josh spoke about the simple fact that it is never too late to turn your life around, but the longer you wait, the more baggage you'll have to carry. Today's call to action follows that same theme. If you are looking to turn around any area of your life, it is never too late. However, every hour, day, week, or month you wait, you will have more baggage to carry. So don't wait another day or even another hour. Decide that you are going to change your life and do it now, and go for your greatness. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.